Imagine for a moment that you're desperate. Your child is dying, and every doctor has given up. You've tried everything, spent everything you had, and still nothing. Hope slips away like sand through your fingers. But then you hear about a different kind of man. A man some call miraculous. This is the account of one of the most touching moments recorded in the Gospels. A story that changed not just one family's life, but continues to transform hearts to this day. The city of Capernaum was buzzing that morning. Jesus had returned from a long journey, and the news spread like wildfire. Crowds gathered in the narrow streets, everyone wanting just a glimpse of the man who performed wonders. But among all that crowd, there was one particularly anguished heart, that of a royal official, a powerful and respected man, but who, at that moment, felt completely powerless before his son's illness. The first point we need to understand is this father's desperate urgency. This wasn't just any ordinary sickness. His son was at death's door. The doctors of that time, with all their limited knowledge, had already declared the case hopeless. Imagine a father's agony watching his child waste away day after day, his breathing becoming weaker, his eyes losing their brightness. It was a race against time, and time was running out fast. The second fascinating aspect of this story is this official's extraordinary humility. Here was a man accustomed to power, to command, to instant respect. Soldiers marched under his orders. Important decisions crossed his desk. But faced with his son's illness, all that authority became meaningless. He knew he had to humble himself before Jesus, recognizing there was a power far greater than any earthly position. The third element that touches us deeply is this father's journey of faith. He had heard reports, perhaps stories whispered in the palace corridors, about this Jesus of Nazareth. Some said he healed the blind. Others spoke of paralytics who walked again. But believing stories is one thing. Betting your own child's life on that faith is completely different. It was a leap in the dark, an act of desperate courage mixed with hope. When he finally found Jesus, something extraordinary happened. The fourth crucial point of this narrative is the intense dialogue between the afflicted father and the master. "Sir, come down before my child dies," pleaded the official, his voice choked with emotion. Every word carried the weight of unconditional paternal love. There was no pride, no pretension, just a father begging for his son's life. Jesus' response leads us to the fifth revolutionary aspect of this story. He didn't say, "Let's go there," as the father expected. Instead, he declared with serene authority, "Go, your son lives." Imagine the impact of those words. There were no elaborate rituals, no laying on of hands, no magic formulas. Just a simple declaration, but loaded with divine power that transcended all physical and geographical limitations. The sixth decisive moment was the Father's choice. He could have insisted that Jesus personally go to his house. He could have doubted, questioned, demanded proof, but something in Jesus' gaze, something in the authority of his voice, touched that man's heart deeply. He chose to believe. He turned his back on Jesus and began the long walk home, carrying only a promise in the words he had heard. The seventh element of the narrative shows us that true faith is tested on the journey. As the father headed home, how many thoughts must have crossed his mind? What if Jesus was wrong? What if it was too late? Every step of the journey back was an act of faith. Every passing minute was a choice to keep believing, even without seeing physical evidence of the healing. The eighth transformative moment happened on the way. The official servants ran to meet him, overflowing with joy and amazement. "Your son lives," they shouted, echoing exactly the words Jesus had spoken hours before. The change had been instantaneous and complete. At the exact moment Jesus had declared the healing, miles away, the boy had miraculously recovered. The ninth aspect that moves us is the reaction of the entire family. When the father asked what time the boy had gotten better and discovered it was precisely when Jesus had spoken, there was no more room for doubt. Faith ceased to be hope and became absolute certainty. The whole family was impacted by this miracle, and together they decided to believe in Jesus not just as a healer, but as the Son of God. The 10th and final point of this extraordinary story leads us to lasting transformation. This wasn't just an isolated moment of physical healing. It was the birth of a faith that spread, influenced, and inspired. The royal official became a living testimony to Jesus' power. His entire family embraced the faith, and the story of this miracle echoed through the centuries, reaching us today. This story teaches us that there are no distances for God's power, no impossible cases for His mercy, and no situations too desperate for His intervention. Sometimes, when we're at the end of our strength, at the limit of our hope, that's exactly where miracles happen. Faith isn't the absence of doubt, but the choice to believe, even when circumstances seem impossible. How many times in our own lives have we found ourselves in the position of that desperate father? How many times haven't we faced situations that seem unsolvable, problems that seem bigger than our ability to resolve them? This story reminds us that there's a greater power, a hope that goes beyond our human limitations. If this story touched your heart, if you identified with that father's anguish or were inspired by the faith he demonstrated, leave your comment below, telling us how faith has transformed your own life. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that will impact and inspire your journey. And don't forget to like this video if it brought hope to your day. Until the next video,